This is the second time.
Second time.
This is the second session, yeah, but probably it's different topic. Yeah.
Yes. Okay, so I've just pressed the record button. That is for those who are not able to join us. What I do is I send the recording to them. And for both of you who are here, I bid you welcome to this session on the Sanity Line in Parenting. I'd like to thank you for being here. It is an honor and pleasure for me to meet you. And since both of you have met me before, especially Danielle, we've just had a class this morning, and now I'm so happy that you are joining us again this evening. And Christine, you're joining us for the second time in this session. So I really appreciate and value your commitment to be here, and I hope that in this session this evening, with the topic that we are discussing, it will bring you some benefits in the context of parenting your wonderful little children that you have. Now, we have about 60 minutes together, 60 or 90 minutes, depending on the discussions that we have. And since there are three of us, so be ready with whatever questions that you want to ask, then we are freer in that sense. Yeah. So what we'll be covering this evening is the first one is we are going to look into this thing called the Sanity Line, the line that that separates us from being sane. If we cross the line, we become insane. So that's the first point that we are going to discuss about. And the second point is on sane parenting. How do we achieve that in the context that our children are growing and there are conflicts in terms of our ideas and what to put into place? So sometimes it can drive some parents to insanity, and we don't want that happening, right? And as usual, if you are familiar with the session that I had before, is that I will pause for discussion after each main point in order to invite you, if you have any questions, comments, or contributions, by all means. And the approach that I bring to all of the topics that we have topics on parenting, we have topics on neurosemantics, a topic on meta coaching, and also topics on relationship. The approach is from the neurosemantics and NLP. Now, I may tend to be speaking the jargon, the technical terms. If you are not familiar, you are most welcome to ask in case I did not explain myself fully with respect to what I'm sharing with you. I'd like to remind you that my style is to be light and humorous. So if I laugh or smile, I'm never laughing at you, but at our own silly human qualities. My purpose is to lighten things up, reduce being serious, and be more real. When we are real, then we can get to the heart of the matter. Just this morning, we were talking about if you get serious, you get stupid. So what we mean by that is we are serious in the subject that we are discussing. At the same time, we do not want to take ourselves overly seriously because there are so many facets about us and there are lots and lots of silliness there. So I keep reminding myself so that I do not take myself too seriously in that sense. Now, a little bit of introduction about this session, as probably you have read in what I've written with respect to the description of this session, is that children, when they are first born, they are entirely helpless. They cannot think nor do anything for themselves. They rely on you, their parents, entirely for their existence. They depend on their parents for every need, starting with the physiological need, safety need, love and belonging need, and also their esteem needs. Yet children grow and develop. They learn to gratify those needs by themselves. So they come to a point whereby they don't need you to gratify those needs. They grow their own minds and decide right from wrong. Ultimately, they will choose a life of their own. That life may be entirely different from how the parents bring them up. And that can be a cause of insanity in some parents, seeing the children turn into somebody or someone else that they are used to. So what are the critical things that parents need to prepare their children with? What are the adjustments parents need to make in raising the children through the different phases of their lives? What preparations do parents need to make to stay sane and happy throughout the process? So this is what we are going to be discussing about. Now, allow me to share my screen because I've prepared some slides in order to help you to visualize what I am bringing to your attention. I mentioned to you just two main points that we'll be discussing this evening. One is the sanity line, and the second main point is the sane parenting. Now, when we talk about the sanity line, we are in fact referring to the personal powers and the power zone. So this is what we are referring to. In neurosemantics, we call them the personal powers. And I've just noticed Franska joining us. Hi, Franska. Great to see you joining us this evening. Now, for some of you, this is a revision. However, we are going back to this is the core, the fundamental. We need to understand this with respect to the sanity line. Now, we have four central powers. Yeah. Two of our powers are internal and two of our powers are external. So these are our four central powers. The two internal powers here refer to our power of thinking and feeling. So these are the internal powers. We call them internal powers because when you use these powers, I can see that, I can observe it. So it's internal. So these are your internal powers. Now, when you use your external powers, these are the power of saying and the power of doing. So when you use your two external powers, then I can observe, then I can notice what is it that you are saying and what is it that you are doing. So from these four personal powers comes what we call the power zone. So this is your zone for thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So in this power zone, what you notice that you are fully response-able. Yeah, I'm deliberately hyphenating the word. You have the ability to respond in terms of your thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. So within this power zone, that's your zone of responsibility. You have the ability to respond by thinking, by feeling, by saying, by doing. And these are your four central powers. Okay? So this is the beginning of the sanity line. Now, just as you have the power to think, feel, say, and do, another person have these powers the same way as you do. So when we take another person, this is you over here with your four central powers, and that's your power zone. When you interact and connect with other human being, that person also have these powers. So you are connecting and relating with a person who has his or her own power zone. So both of you are connecting and relating together, and each one of you are operating within your power zone. So this is where we call the sanity line lies. Yeah. The demarcation between my powers as compared to your powers. So when you stay within your power zone, there will not be any issue of insanity because you are fully in control of your four central powers. Now, the moment you cross that line, you extend your power zone to cross the line and into another person's power zone. That's when you are in the you are dabbling into the realm of insanity. Yeah. So we need to be very clear that we are responsible to our power. You are responsible for your power of thinking and for your power of feeling. You are responsible for your power of saying and for your power of doing. However, in the context of another person, you are only responsible towards the person for what you say and what you do. You are not responsible for what the person thinks and feels, and you are not responsible for what the person says and does. So when you keep that demarcation clear, when you keep that boundary clear, you remain within your own sanity. The moment you move across, so this is what I label it as over responsibility, is that when you are interacting with someone else and you begin to extend your power zone to include someone else's thinking, feeling, and someone else's saying and doing, you want to control that, you want to influence that. Attempting to control someone else's power, that brings you to an area of conflict, and that conflict will bring you to, will drive you towards insanity, because you cannot control somebody else's power without the person asserting that this is my power. And that is a conflict situation. So that's why we call it the sanity line, trying to control somebody else's power. And from the neurosemantics perspective, what drives a person to do that is this meta program called the meta program of adaptation. The meta program of adaptation is a continuum. One end of that continuum is the thinking pattern of judging and controlling. You look at things around you, you make evaluation, you make judgment, and you want to take action in order to control what's happening. So that's one end of the spectrum. On the other end of the spectrum is the thinking pattern of just witnessing, perceiving, releasing, just noticing that happening. So when we talk about over-responsibility, is when a person judges using your judges another person's power and wanting to control that other person's power. Yeah? So that's an over-responsibility. So the healthy way of running this meta program in the context of remaining sane is that you use that judging and controlling aspect of the meta program to judge and control your own powers. You judge your thinking, you control your feeling, you judge what you're saying, you're doing, because by judging and controlling this, these are within your own power zone. So it makes sense for you to do that. Now, when it comes to another person's powers, that is when we want to shift our operation from judging to releasing. to noticing, to perceiving. Somebody is acting in that way. Somebody is speaking in that way. Know that that person is just implementing their own powers. They are operating from their own personal powers. So this is what we refer to as the sanity line. When you attempt to cross the line, that's when you tempt yourself into insanity. Okay, so this is the first point for us to be very clear about the sanity line before we go into how to be a sane parent. Okay, so let me pause over here and welcome any questions or comments that each and every one of you have. So Christine, Franska is not able to on the mic or camera because baby is sleeping. And I'd like to welcome Hanif for joining us. I'm so glad that you're joining us this evening. So I'd like to open up for discussions or comments with respect to this first point. So go ahead. You can unmute yourself and ask questions or comment.
Hi, it's Christine here. Can I just check, right? Like this sanity line, does it apply to like all age, like children's all age, or it only applies to a certain age and above? Because like for the younger kids that we have, right, we may need to actually still guide them. But of course, like for the older kids, we don't have to guide them anymore. They have their own feelings and thought. So I'm just wanted to check, like this concept, does it apply to all age?
Thank you for asking that question. So what you asked just now, we'll be covering in the next point, sane parenting. Yeah. So what I've just described is just make a description of the sanity line first. So this refers to two adults who are in full control of their powers. So there is that sanity line. Now, when it comes to children, so that's in the next point that I will go into detail. That depends on their developmental level.
Cool, thank you.
Thank you, Christine. Yeah. So any other points or comments? Are you good with that? Yeah. So probably Daniel and Fraska, you are already familiar with the sanity line because I keep repeating this over and over again. So let's move to the second point, which is sane parenting. Right. Yeah, here we are on sane parenting. Now, the thing about remaining sane as you parent is that parents need to remain sane when parenting their children, because when you become insane, you may not be able to parent effectively. So that is why being sane as a parent is critical. It's just that our children seem to have a knack for driving some parents insane. Yeah, and probably for most parents, the first incident is when the child is about 1.5 to 2 years old. All this while, in the first 1.5 years of the life, the child is so compliant. Whatever that you do towards the child, everything the child follows. By the time the child is about 1.5 or 2 years old, the first stage of individuating, the child starts to say no. Sometimes the child wants something. Yeah, for example, you notice that the child is hungry, and little children at the age, even though they are hungry, ask, do you want to eat something? No. That drives some parents insane in that sense. Now, let me just bring back to the goal of parenting in the context of these personal powers. As a parent, our goal in parenting our children is to develop the child's personal powers. We want to help the child to develop their powers of feeling, thinking, saying, and doing to the extent that they are able to use those powers independently. when they are able to think, feel, say, do independently, then they are able to navigate life and chart out their own life. So in the context of the personal powers, the goal in parenting is to develop the child to be able to use their powers fully and completely. Now, the thing is this, as what Christine mentioned just now. The situation is a child is not a small adult. I mean, they look like they have a head, they have two hands, they have two legs, they have a body, just like adults in small form, but they are not small adult. They are a totally different, I would say, organism altogether, because that particular child, after being given birth to, is now developing to become an adult human being. So what happens is that when a child is, yes, thank you, Francisca. I always use the term magical creatures. Little children who I would say below the age of 5, they are magical creatures. They operate in a magical fashion. Later on, when we go into the meta program of causation, the reason why we call them magical creatures is that in terms of the meta program of causation, they are operating on magical thinking. So that's why I call them magical creatures. Now, when a child is born, at birth, you, the parent, you have, I hope, you have full control of your four fundamental powers, the powers of thinking, feeling, saying, and doing. Now, a child at birth doesn't have that control. The child does not know how to control his or her thinking or feeling or saying or doing. And you can notice, especially when children are about 6-7 months old, sometimes they are so frustrated. They want to communicate something, they want to say something, but their mouth fail to say the words out. So that's why you notice some children at about the age of 6 to 8 months, they appear to be so frustrated because they hear you say something, you say food, but for them, the word food doesn't come out. So they don't have that control over the saying, over the doing, neither do they have control over their thinking and their feeling. And because they don't have that control, they can be a danger to themselves. So that's why at the point of birth, the parent needs to extend that power zone to take the child into that power zone, because we are there for them in order to help them to survive, to get them to live. Otherwise, I mean, little children, they can even kill themselves without knowing it. Okay, so parents need to assume the control over the child. Why? Because you as a parent, you have both the moral and the legal authority to take control. But you need to remember that the power that you exert over the child is proxy power, and it is temporary. You are exerting full control over the child, and at the same time, the child is developing his or her thinking, feeling, saying, doing powers. So that's why I consider that as a proxy control, because during the stage when the child is learning to use his or her powers, the child is still a danger to himself or herself. So we as parents, we take control over that power. Yeah. But remember, it is just proxy power as we take that control. So we use whatever means we have in order to influence or control the child's thinking, the child's feeling, the child's saying, and the child's doing. It's just that as the reason why I use the proxy control is that when the child begins to develop or begin to mature their control of their powers, that is when, as parents, we need to begin to reduce our assertion of control. We need to take it back. Yeah? And this begins when the child experiences the first individuating. The first individuating, 1.5 to 2 years, the child begins to know that I am another person, another human being, another organism. The child begins to say no. That individuating period, saying no, is basically the child is asserting that I have control over certain things, certain powers. And as parents, remember, our goal is to bring the child to be able to control their powers fully and completely, beginning to understand that the child is now using their power. We need to reduce our control of that power, because if we continue to exert that power, we are depriving the child of learning how to use that power. So that's why we want to be able to pull back. And as the child grows further, we need to reduce that amount of control. Yeah. So as parents, we need to recede the control to the child gradually as the child develops, because the child cannot, because they have not learned how to control their powers yet. Since they have not learned to control their powers yet, we cannot give all of that control to them at one go. It will also destroy them. At the same time, since our goal is to get them to have full control of their powers, we cannot assume that control indefinitely. So we need to let go of that control gradually, according to the child's developmental progress. So that is why in parenting, we need to be well-versed with the developmental stages. So I'm going to very briefly go through the stages of development in a few of our past sessions. I've covered this in more detail. Maybe if in the future there is a need, then probably I can cover this in more detail as well. Now, we need to be aware that, as I said earlier, children are not small adults. They are magical creatures developing to become adult human beings. So when we talk about the stages of development, the most common ones that we come across are the development of the psychosocial, the cognitive development, the belief stages, and also adult development. And how a child develops that, when I talk about child, I'm referring to from birth to 18. Why 18? And 18 years old is, you couldn't really consider it as a child. However, as parents, we are still responsible for our children until the age of 18. So that's the legal age. Some children are already fully using their powers by the age of 15 or 16, but legally, parents, we are still responsible for them until the age of 18. Okay, so notice that the psychosocial stages develop first the stage of hope, stage of will, stage of purpose, stage of competency, and stage of fidelity. So it begins to develop in that fashion. Hope in the first 2 years, will beginning to develop by about 1.5 years. So that's the developmental process. So that's just the psychosocial stage. The cognitive development stages are also coming into play at the same time. So they are running concurrently. So that is why we notice that the growth of the child is so tremendous, especially in the first 6 years. In cognitive development, they are growing in the area first from they go into sensory motor stage, then the pre-operational stage, then they go into concrete operational, and by the age of about 12, then they begin the formal operational stage. In terms of the belief stages, from birth, they begin to develop the primal undifferentiated belief stage, then the intuitive projective stage, the mythic literal stage, and from the age of 12 going into the synthetic conventional stage. And in terms of adult development, notice that the first 6 years, almost 6 years, they are in that impulsive stage. Moving into, from 6 years onwards, they go into imperial stage, and then they go into socialized stage, reaching up to 18. These are the, I would say, ordinary development of an individual child. It's just that some children, they develop faster in one area, some children develop slower. However, if there is a trauma, a person may also not develop fully. Yeah. For example, a child at birth, not being given full care, cannot rely on the primary caregiver, will not develop the social virtue of hope even throughout their lives until an intervention comes in. So if there is any trauma with respect to the development at any of those stages, that particular development stage in a child may not be complete, and that would impact the other stages of development. So when we look at this, this is where, as parents, we are looking at, from the at the stage of birth, we need to use our meta program of controlling and releasing judiciously. We need to use it wisely. And because at one end of that meta program is the end of control, taking control. At the other end of the meta program is releasing, control and releasing. So when the child is not fully able to use his or her powers, that's when you want to assume full control. As the child begins to learn to use the thinking, feeling, saying, doing powers, we want to let go of that control. And it will be something like that. There will be an S-curve, like an S-curve involved. So probably in the first 1.5 to 2 years, we as parents, we are exerting full control of their powers. By about 2 years, now we are beginning to let go, meaning to say we are allowing the child to express the way that they want to live their lives. Yeah? As I mentioned, when the child first goes through the individuating process, the child begins to want to exert their ability to use those powers. And that is where the word would be the negotiation that needs to take place. Because we as parents know that the child is not fully developed. We cannot allow the child to have full access to their saying and doing powers. At the same time, we want to give just a little in order to train them to use those powers, wisely. So this is where the skills of communicating comes in. When we talk about communicating, specifically, I'm referring to the skill of relating with the child and the skill of framing. Framing in the sense that, for example, when the child is age 3 and below, the child is not yet able to utilize the thinking process. However, at the age of 3, we are priming them, framing them for the time that they are able to do that. Yeah. So that's why as we are taking care of the child at this stage of their life, we are aware of where they will be in the next stage of their life, and we are preparing them for that. Yeah, we are preparing them for that. For example, the power of thinking. Yeah? The power of thinking requires them to think. So even though at the age of, say, 6 months or 8 months, they are not yet fully capable in thinking, we are helping them to think in gentle ways. For example, I remember when my youngest daughter, now she's already 24, going to 24, 25 already. When she was about 2 or 3 months old, that was when she was not able to think, not able to make any decisions yet. However, her elder sister, Shaima, used to play with her about making choices. She'll do things like take 2 dresses after she bathes Sophia, take 2 dresses and put it in front of Sophia. Fia, which one do you want to wear today? This one or this one? This one or this one? So even though she's 2 years old, she's not able to make decisions yet verbally. But now by doing that, just stimulating that capability, that ability to make decisions when it comes to that. Because once you stimulate it, then you are helping it to develop and grow. Yeah. Another skill that's important for parents are the skill of coaching. Coaching is when the child doesn't know what to do, you are coaching and mentoring them to take on the skills and in order to be able to perform in that particular skill. Another skill for parents, of course, the skill of teaching and the skill of training. So these are, I consider as primary skills that parents need to have: the skill of communicating, the skill of coaching, mentoring, the skill of teaching and training. So once you have all of these skills, then it makes it easier to do that. Yeah, I'm just looking at Franska's note in the chat. You tried, I tried on my girl. She will grab one of the cloth now. Funny. Yeah. And I just want to assure you that when she grabs the cloth, she is doing it in a way that, to express how she is currently operating. It is not coincident that she grabbed one cloth and not the other. She is trying to, the word is trying to apply the skill of choosing. Yeah. So this is how we train them. So it doesn't mean that we need to wait until the child is 2 years old, only then we give them choices. So before that, we play around with it, noticing that they are not able to do that well yet. Okay, so there are problems that we face. Yeah, so there are problems that we face. What I will do is I will pause here and I will get into the problems afterwards. So we'll take that as the third point with respect to problems here. So we've just discussed about this sane parenting. So this also alludes to the point that Christine mentioned, that when we negotiate the power zone, we are releasing our powers to the child gradually as they develop. And that is why, as parents, we want to be on the ball with respect to their developmental progress. Because if we are late in releasing certain powers, then they begin to feel that discomfort, because a child would want to exercise their full powers. Okay, so I'm going to pause there in order to bring in any questions or comments. I'd just like to say hi to Farah, who's just joined us. I hope you managed to get what I've just mentioned just now. If you're not clear, just ask a question. Yeah, Farah? Thank you. So, yes, Dania.
Yeah, Mazuki, I just want to share my seven-year-old, my younger daughter, she's 7. And what I noticed recently is, of course, since young, she always say no, no, no. So for now, we fight very hard for her to just take instruction. Then I tried another method the other day. So every weekend, her father will bring them down to the playground and play. And suddenly one day, she said she don't want.
Oops, I've lost.
Chris, let's go now. But she said no. And
Mhm.
then yeah. So Chris asked her to go, and then she just said no. So what I did, I tried is I actually give her option for her to choose. So I said that, so do you want to go to the playground or you want to stay at home and watch TV? So then she's sitting for a while and then she said, I want to go playground. So is that?
Sorry, Daniel, I got cut off.
She make decision for herself in taking instruction from us.
Again, can you ask the question?
Sorry. Okay, I will repeat again. Yeah, so is it when we give her options, she feels that she has the power to make decision for herself rather than just taking instruction from us?
Yes, because by the age of 1.5 to 2, this is the first individuating period, they want to exercise the power of making decisions. So that's why at the age of 1.5 to 2, when the child begins to individuate, the first word that will come to them is no. Because that no is not about negating you. That no is about putting a boundary between me and mama. Before that, she thinks that she is part of you. The Malay word we use for it is pertunasan. Like a tree, you graft. So before that, the child thinks that she is part of you. Then by the age of 1.5 to 3, then realize that, hey, I am a different person. So that first no is about, this is me, and that is you. So that's the first no. Now, when the child is given the opportunity to individuate healthily, her no's at that time are respected. The child can get through that phase very quickly. That's why some children, by the age of 2, they'll stop saying no for the sake of saying no. Because now they have developed their self-matrix that is healthy. However, if during that stage, their no's are invalidated, parents want to assert, no, you must do this, no, you must do this, then that invalidation creates a trauma. And because of that, it slows down that individuating process. So that's why some children go up to the age of 3 or sometimes even 5 years old, the individuating process is being lengthened. You will probably some of them only by the age of 5 or 6, only then they are they feel more comfortable with their individuality. So that's why we want to first respect that no. When we respect that no, then they know how to esteem themselves individually. So, and there are many things that parents can do with children who are beginning to individuate, and yet you are not saying no to their no. You are not setting up an insane argument. One is, as what you have discovered, giving them choices. At that time, knowing that they will say no, you can give them choices. Do you want to play? Do you want to play in the playground, or do you want to play in the house? At the same time, you can also use other ways of making choices. Things like, do you want to play in the playground now or in half an hour's time? Because this is you know that the child has been in the house for too long, and you know that it is unhealthy for her, and you know and you want the child to play outside. So if you say to the child who is learning to say no, do you want to play outside? No. However, when you give them that illusion of choice, do you want to play outside now or in half an hour's time? Now they feel they are in control. I am in charge of my life. So I say, I want to play now. So the child goes and play outside. Or they say, I'm going to play in half an hour's time. So this is where having the skill of language helps you to get the child to do what's healthy, because at that point, the child may not know what's healthy for them or not. So as parents, we need to guide. So this is how we influence their control of their choices. We still give them choice, however, we can influence in that way. Another way is to give them a double negative, that when they say no, it means yes to what we want them to do. Use a double negative. So when they say no to that double negative, it means yes to what we want them to do. Okay, so that's another example. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Shaima's just joined us. Hi, Shaima. Are you at home or are you in Daddy's house? You cannot speak. There is a audio issue. Okay, thanks. So anyone else? Any other questions? Oh, you just got back. Okay. Right. So you are good there? Just like to say hello to Shahira and also Wafa for joining us. So we've covered 2 points already this evening. One is understanding the power zone, because from the power zone, then we are clear about the sanity line. What does that sanity line mean? And then as parents, the second point is sane parenting. As parents, the dilemma is that we cannot stay within our power zone exclusively during the time when our children have not yet learned how to control their powers of thinking, feeling, saying, doing. So that's why I say that it is a dilemma, because at the point when our at the point when our children do not yet know how to use their powers, we need to assume control. So that's where the negotiation comes in, to assume control in the areas that they are not yet competent, and to gently give them control in the areas that they are competent in. Now, the next thing that we need to also realize that, yes, there are problems involved. And what are the problems? One problem is that the problems that cause parents to go into the area of insanity. One problem is when parents are over-identifying. Over-identifying can be something as that my child belongs to me. Therefore, my child must behave the way that I want to behave. So that is over-identifying. And that will create a situation whereby the parent will not want to let go of control and release the child. So the parent keep holding onto that power to prevent the child from using their own power. The parent, a parent could identify the child's achievement as theirs. So that is also an issue of identifying. And because of that, the parent wants the child to be a champion swimmer, to get all A's in the exam. So that comes in because the parent begin to identify the child's achievement as theirs. So maybe the parent at one time wanted to become, hey, Mayan. Maybe at one time the parent wants to become a doctor, but did not manage to achieve that goal. And because of that, the parent identifies the goal of being a doctor in the child, putting that in the child and expecting that the child pursue that that discipline of medicine. So that is one problem that can happen, over identifying you are linking a parent, linking their identity with the identity of the child, linking the identity with the achievement of the child. So that will prevent parents from releasing the control in a healthy way. So they keep on wanting to hold that control. Yeah, and because of that, it creates insane moments between parent and child. Yeah, so that's one problem. So that's the problem of over responsibility. Over responsibility, meaning to say, as parent, you want to take control over the responses of the child. So when I talk about child, now the child may be in the teens already. So you want to take control of their responses. The other is guilt. Guilt, in the sense, this also comes from over responsibility, that when the child does something that is against their values, yeah, the parents are the one who assume the guilt, because my child does that, therefore I'm a bad parent. So that is the issue of over identifying and also create guilt. So with respect to guilt, parents need to also know the meta program of causation, that certain things that you can do that can help to get the outcome that you want, and there are certain things, how much you do, you still cannot get the outcome that you want. So that is another area that parents need to know. And for me, let me just share this slide. Why we want to move away from over responsibility towards our children. We want to move away from over identifying, is because as what I had shown to you earlier in terms of the stages of development in a child. So let me just go back to the previous one. Okay. Yes. So this was where we are at when we are raising our children, growing from birth to the age of 18. That's the legal age of the child. So the child is developing so fast. The first 6 years, the second 6 years, and the third 6 years there. So this is where I showed earlier that we want to reduce the amount of control and to be releasing with respect to the child choosing their own, making their own choices in life. So we are releasing the amount of control that we have. At the same time, we want to know that when we talk about the stages of development going up to 18, it doesn't stop there. So no matter how much we as parents want to help the child, to influence the child in a particular way, that child, adult, beyond the age of 18, has still got a lot more development to go. And that is why they will continue to change. Yeah, so let's take a look at this, the stages of development. Now, what I'm showing to you is that instead of from birth to 18, now I've extended the timeline to 65. And notice the stages of development coming in, kicking in. Yes, hope, will, purpose, competency, fidelity, going up to about 18. Then that psychosocial development of love and care kicks in during the time of young adulthood. So they are developing at a point whereby they are totally outside of your power zone. So they can go whatever way, whichever way that they want to go. Similarly, when it comes to cognitive development, sensory motor, operational, concrete operational, then the formal operational will continue to go on and on towards the rest of their lives. When it comes to belief stages, we talk about primal, undifferentiated, intuitive, projective, mythic, literal. Then as a young adult, they continue to develop in terms of individuative, reflective, conjunctive, and universalizing. So this is how they begin to become a wise adult, a mature adult. So similarly with adult development, what I introduced to you until the age of 18 just now was impulsive, imperial, and socialized. Then in the, you consider as the Middle Ages, the self-authoring begins to kick in. The self-transforming begins to kick in. So notice that from the age of 18 towards the adult life, an individual human being is going to go through a lot more development process in their lives. And as they go through those developmental stages, they will change. So that's why as parents, we need to, I would say, we need to have that urgency in the 18 years. And those are short 18 years, actually, the 18 years of the first 18 years of their lives. We need to have that urgency within those 18 years to prepare our children to be able to use their thinking, feeling, saying, doing fully and completely in a healthy way. Because if by the age of 16 to 18, they're able to think, feel, say, do in a healthy way, then the rest of the development will hopefully be healthy for them. Because after that, it is totally outside of our powers. We don't have any more control. We don't have any more powers there. They are individual human beings. They are becoming the human beings that they need to become. So that is when, by the age of 16 to 18, we need to be releasing fully. And the sad thing about parents is that when they don't release that fully, the children are already young adults in their early 20s, late 20s, going into 30s. The parents still wanting to exert that control, that causes the children to run away from them. Because a human being wants to be free, wants to utilize their freedom to choose. As Stephen Covey puts it, freedom to choose is one of the gifts, the birth gifts of a human being. Okay, so this is why I would like to bring to your attention this evening, the Sanity Line. Here is that there are limits to what we as parents can influence and control our children. By the age of 18, 16 to 18, there is no more influence or control. We need to let them go. As what Elsa said, let it go, let it go. They are becoming human beings. And that is our role as parents, to get them to be as much prepared as possible by the time they turn 16. After that, it is their life. They need to chart their own life from there. Okay, so what I would like to do is probably to sum up some of the things that we covered this evening. Is that first is that we need to be mindful on the sanity line. When we cross over that line, we drive ourselves insane and we drive our children insane. And then to be able to be judicious and wise in transitioning between control and releasing. We let go of control immediately, release completely, and the child is not ready. The child may be hurt or harmed. If we hold on to that control too long, the child will also be harmed. So the key thing is to know when to let go of that control, when to release, in order for the child to grow up to become healthy adults. Yeah? And to always remind ourselves that our role as parents, we are paying forward for what our parents have done to us. Our role as parents is to equip our children to be independent young adults so that they can chart out their own lives in the future. Okay, so that's where I will stop the session for this evening, to stop my presentation for this evening. So I would like to invite any comments or questions that you may have, or reflections that you may have out of what we have discovered. So I'd just like to invite any one of you. First, questions. Are there any questions that you may want to ask for this evening?
Hello. Hello.
Yes.
Assalamualaikum.
Waalaikumsalam. Silakan.
Okay. Sorry saya masuk lambat tadi. Jadi baru dapat untuk satu poin tu tadi lah. Cuma nak tanya untuk macam anak saya 12 tahun ni. Bila kita bagi dia freedom to choose tu, kita dah bagi all the kesan yang dia akan dapat untuk setiap pilihan yang dia dapat tu. But then macam Tuan Mazki cakap tadi, anak-anak ni kan dia ada dia punya kemahuan sendiri kan. Dia punya cara berfikir tu of course lain pada kita mak ayah ni, sebab mak ayah ni lebih berfikir untuk jangka masa panjang ke depan, tapi anak-anak ni masih lagi dalam ruang lingkup pemikiran tu masih terhad. Kemudian bila kita dah bagi, okay, if you choose A, this is your way to do it, and kalau you choose A, ini kesan ni. If you choose B, ini kesan ni. But then we hope that dia akan pilih pilihan yang kita nak lah. Contoh kita rasa, but for what I see, if you choose B, it's better for you. But then dia akan kata, I think I want to choose A lah, kata macam tu. Dia macam berlawanan. Kalau kita kata B, dia kata A. Kalau kita kata A, dia kata B. Jadi somehow, kadang-kadang bila kita dalam keadaan tengah berbincang dia masa tu, kita akan jadi insane lah kan. Maksudnya macam, apa nak buat ni? Dia dah kata A. Kalau kita biarkan dia akan dapat kesan yang pada kita kurang lah daripada choice B tu tadi kan. Jadi macam mana kita nak communicate dia waktu tu? Adakah kita perlu biarkan dia dulu? Okay, if you want to choose A, okay, kita tengok dulu and we see apa yang you akan dapat. Tapi kita dalam hati kita sebagai ibu ni akan rasa risau sebab sebab kita tahu itu that is not the best. Kita dah bagi dia the best and the kurang best tu, tapi dia still lagi pilih yang kurang best. Jadi macam mana tu?
Okay. Thank you. Ada beberapa perkara involved kat situ, a few things involved. But I will just limit my answer ni to dia punya developmental stages. Because another issue kita boleh nampak dari segi meta program. Salah satu daripada meta program ialah meta program mismatching. Mismatching ni kalau kita kata A, dia akan kata B. Dia mismatch. Dia corak berfikir dia ialah untuk melakukan perkara yang berbeza daripada apa yang kita cakap. Itu satu hal, that is meta program. However, what I just want to mention here is in terms of developmental process. 12 tahun dia baru saja mula what we call formal operational thinking. Sebelum tu dia masih lagi concrete operational. Dia kena tengok yang evidence yang konkret. Dia belajar at apa kita panggil at a fixed level. Dia belum belajar faham konsep lagi. Umur 12 tahun tu for some children itu baru dia belajar berfikir secara konsep. It's just that ni yang saya sedih juga is saya sedih dan saya boleh ketawa because schools are teaching our children only at the concrete level. They are not teaching our children at the concept level. So that is why as parents, if we know that the child by the age of 12, dia akan develop the formal operational thinking tu, we need to by the age of, I would say by the age of 8, kita dah nak kena introduce that thinking pada dia. When we introduce the formal operational thinking at the age of 8, they are not yet ready. The brain is not fully developed. They are not yet ready. However, when we start to introduce it in that particular way, so that when their brain is ready, they can go. Jangan tunggu dia 12 tahun baru kita nak bawa the formal operational. So it gets delayed. So what we do is the word that I mentioned earlier is framing ataupun priming. Sebelum dia ready lagi, kita dah bawa the concept to that. And how do you do that? That's why in one, I can't remember when I talk about the teams method of parenting, is that as parents, we should not only say to our children, do this, do that. As we say to them, do this, do that, we also need to fill them in with the psychological process of why they need to do that. So now they learn the reason for doing. And that rationale, process of thinking, secara bercerita, we bring it. So things like macam Syaimak, you shared with me yang Tok Wei kata that apa ni, macam mana Tok Wei kata, kalau pandai jaga rumah, bila dah besar nanti kerja, pandailah jaga kerja, something like that. Macam mana Syaimak the words Tok Wei kata?
Kalau dah biasa uruskan everything dekat rumah, bila dah kerja, you akan pandai uruskan dekat kerja dan dekat rumah. Because dah biasa uruskan benda.
So how old were you at that time?
I think I was 10, 11.
Okay, 10, 11. So 10, 11 is basically you are still at the concrete operational level. However, that concept that Tok Wei brought to you is at the formal operational thinking level. So it is introduced earlier. So that's why it helps you when you reach your brain development, reach the level of operation, formal operational, you are able to go cleanly into it. There are no disjointing. So that is what I refer to as framing and priming, getting to do it. So that's why I keep on saying, children raised with reason becomes reasonable. So as they are growing, give them reason. For example, when you are cooking and you wash the onions, ada budak tu suka makan onion ya. You wash the onions. So you say to the child, okay, mama is washing the onions because if you don't wash the onions, there might be soil, there might be germs, and because of that, when we eat, we will not be healthy. So you are just through that conversation, giving reason. So now the child knows that there is a reason why you wash. There is a reason why you cut. Then the child begins to develop the mindset, if I want to do something, there must be a reason for me to do it. Yeah. So these are the psychological development that you can help with the children. Yeah? Because to get them to exercise their freedom to choose, they need to learn that every choice has a consequence, and every choice that they need to make, there must be a reason for it. So when we provide the reasoning behind, so because when we talk about meaning making in neurosemantics, meaning making can be a disaster if people are not sequencing the logical level properly. So you can, through your reasoning process, drive yourself crazy. if your meaning making is unhealthy. So that's why as parents, we want to show to them through our conversation, show to them what is the healthy meaning making process. Do not expect them to identify the right meaning making process. We need to show to them the right meaning making process. Expose to them our rationale for doing things. Barulah bila dia umur 12 tahun, dia boleh menggunakan rasional kita. Kalau tidak, dia akan cari rasional dia sendiri. And the thing of that's why we say logic is not universal. Some people psychologic drive themselves crazy, drive other people crazy because their logic is not sensory based. They can be fantasy based. That can be harmful. So that's why we need to, things like when Pocoyo puts the Calpis back in the fridge and saying that, kakak ditanya, Pocoyo, why did you put that bottle back in the fridge? Tomorrow is going to be full again. That is the undeveloped logic of a small child. So we need to find a healthy way to get the child to realize that logic doesn't work. However, if we continue to encourage that kind of logic, the child will grow up to be delusional. Psychologic is not universal. So that's why the key to it are in neurosemantics, we keep talking about the meta model of language, the meta stating effect. So all of this comes into play, insyaAllah. Ya, boleh ya? Alhamdulillah.
So kalau macam dalam macam soalan Syira tadi, kalau macam the solution tadi is apa orang kata jadi kata frame before the age. So now bila dia dah come to the age and baru terperasan macam I have kind of the same ni juga dengan Muhammad, because I don't do enough seeding with him masa dia kecil, so dia punya development in terms of reasoning tu is not the same as masa kakak dia at his age right now. So what do I do macam right now, if I remember, I mean if something happened and then I realize that he's like a bit unable to grasp the concept or the idea, I would just back off for the moment to avoid conflict, and then at a later time do some storytelling, because he's still 8. He's 8, but for macam Syira, her son is already 12. How do you balance between giving him the freedom to choose and where do you actually draw the line for yourself, so that you don't get insane and you also don't drive the child insane as well?
So that's why I show the S-curve. The S-curve for releasing control with the background of the developmental stages. So when we let go of control, it is not according to age. It is according to the child's developmental stage. So if the child at the age of 12 is still unable to handle formal operational thinking, then we do not want to give too much control yet, because their logic circuit is not yet well developed. So as Shaimak mentioned, that maybe you need to give some input. And the thing is that when they are already 12, input in terms of telling and advising is not going to work. So it can be through storytelling, because that is what we call metaphor. Yeah, metaphors help them to move from concrete to formal, because they need to move up. Metaphor. So that's why storytelling, metaphors are powerful tools that parents need to use from the age of, I would say, from the age of 2. From the age of 2. So that's why in certain cultures, they have this culture of reading before bedtime, because reading stories before bedtime, you're introducing stories to them, and they first they learn the stories at the fixed level, and then when they reach the age of about 6 or 8, then they begin to re-evaluate the stories at a more conceptual level. Going up to the age of 12, they are going up to the more conceptual level. It's just that be careful about the stories that you bring during bedtime lah. Yeah, because all of these, a lot of these fairy tale stories are really gruesome. So be careful. Hansel and Gretel is about cannibalism. Yes. Any other comments, Shema?
So basically, being parents is all your life is to prepare your child to live without you. That's what I just told Azahra. That's what I said. I told her that being parents is all about helping your child to live without you. Yeah. In a, I mean, to live successfully without you. That's, yeah.
And isn't that the same with coaches? Because a coach with a client, we benchmark our success based upon the client not needing us anymore. So when the client doesn't need us anymore, so meaning to say we've done a good job. So as parents, that is also a big objective that we bring into the parenting, to prepare the child so that they will not need us anymore. So then we know that we have done a good job. Okay, any other questions or comments from anyone?
Mr. Marzuki, can I just check, right?
Yes.
I mean, like what you say, the developmental stages kind of like determine like when the kids will have the ability to comprehend some concept, right? So do you have any recommendations on like what book to actually refer to? Because like I know that you have given like a very high level introductions on like maybe this is like a concrete level, this is an operational level, but in terms of like breaking down, do you have any good recommendations like where we can refer?
All of those developmental stages, you can actually find references to them. Even when you go to the internet, there are different levels of articleship about those. For example, you can read up on the introductory level of the psychosocial stages. So basically, those are the 4 main ones that you want to take care of. Erik Erikson's psychosocial stage, then the cognitive developmental stages, the belief stages. The belief stages, for me, is very important to understand, because as parents, we want our children to embrace the values that we have. And because when they embrace the values that we have, we are in better rapport, and that leads to longer lasting relationship. So how do you bring those? Understanding the belief stages allows us to share our values with them as they are developing the beliefs about themselves, about life, about the world, and so on. So that's Keegan's belief stages. And also the adult developmental stage. What you can do is you can look up for articles that first discuss them at a general level. Then when you familiar with that, then you can go in deeper and deeper and deeper. So that's basically what I can just suggest to you. No specific books that I can think of right now, but I think when it comes to all of this, you look for them in the section under apa kita panggil childcare.
What I go to the early child development.
Yeah. Early child development. You go for early child development. And the traditional ones that are still valid today are the works of Dr. Maria Montessori. Those are the you can say established ones and valid until today. Look up under early child development. So these are some of the knowledge and skills that we parents need to have under our belt, so to speak. Yeah. So I hope that's useful for you, Christine. I don't have specific books to mention.
Oh yeah, cool. That's very helpful. Thank you for that. I have another question. So like my kid is a boy, so he's 7 this year. Mm-hmm. He's just beside me, so I'm not too sure whether he will like just eavesdrop on what we are discussing. But what happened is, I guess that even us adult, right? Sometimes it's easier for us to blame on others when things doesn't go well. Mm-hmm. Of course, then we kind of like take the credit for doing something well. So I think that is very natural as a human. Mm. So I guess that I'm not sure, is it because for his age, the concept is still not there. So sometimes when he did something, it resulted into like a very negative situation. For example, I break the things, that's why I got punishment, then I cannot get to play my iPad. Then he will say that, why you are treating me that way? You are making me not getting my iPad time. But then I was trying to explain to him, it's not me. So you are the one who do this and then ended in this result. So how to help explain to him in a way that he can accept at his age, rather than using like the adult way of explaining it rationally, because I guess he cannot grasp the concept at this moment, right? So what would be like a better way to talk to a 7-year-old on like the consequences of his action?
Yeah. 7 years old, still operating at the pre-operational cognitive development stage in terms of the psychosocial stage, just beginning on competency, just past the purpose stage. So at those stages, in terms of logic, their logic is still different from ours. Trying to explain something to him from our logical standpoint makes the word will be will make it is difficult for him to understand that logic. They are not able to do that. So to be able to explain things from his logical perspective. Now, the thing about it is that one of the things that you want to bring, you see, how we human beings learn is through mistakes. We learn from our mistakes. So part of the value that we want to bring into bringing up our children is to not punish mistakes if they can learn from that. In NLP, we say that every person has the ability for one trial learning. So sometimes we as parents, whenever the child makes a certain mistake, we punish for that mistake, not realizing that that mistake is not caused by ill intention, but it is caused by lack of competency. For example, the child takes a mug and then drops the mug on the floor, and the mug breaks. So we judge the child based upon our competency. So you have broken that mug, so therefore you have to be punished for it. But as far as the child is concerned, maybe a 6 or 7 year old child, holding a mug of that size. For us, a mug of that size is less than 1/20th of our weight. But for that child, that mug is 1/10th of his weight. So that mug is heavy. It's too big for his hands. So that's why the mug drops. So it is not because he is not careful. He is lacking in strength. He's lacking in competency. So when a child doesn't perform because of lack of competency, so that is when we want to withhold punishment. Yeah, we want to withhold punishment. We want to bring in learning. And punishing early causes the child to be afraid of making mistakes, and being afraid of making mistakes will reduce the ability for the child to learn. So it is a downward spiral. So that's why one of the things that we do is that we do not punish a child for making mistakes. However, we help them to not make that same mistake the next time, to get them into the learning mode. In that way, the child will be operating more from joy, from happiness, and because of that, they will learn so much faster. But now we are putting them into an upward spiral instead of a vicious cycle downwards. So that's something that I can give as a general, without knowing your child specifically what needs to be done. Is that culture of learning needs to be brought into the life of the child, instead of because we are so the word is so used to the culture of punishment. When things go wrong, we overlook the fact that learning would be the key in order to change behavior. Yeah. So these are areas that I would like you to re-look at.
Sure. So perhaps I've given like not a very good example. So I do understand, like if let's say it's an accidental behavior, definitely we should not be punishing the child. It's more like a behavioral, say for example, so I do understand that like the positive reinforcement works a lot better than the punishment as well. But in a way, like changing a behavior, say for example, you only have like 15 minutes to get yourself ready before we can actually go out. Then the consequences of not getting ready within 15 minutes is we will be late. And if let's say you are late, then there's a consequences, right? So even when I like explain to him, sometimes yes, he got it, like the expected behavior, the reward, and sometimes come with the punishment. But at times it is still like taking time, dilly-dally, or like just knowing it but do not want to do it. So I think the struggling part is that like when he doesn't want to do it, when I'm like in rush, that make me insane, because I wanted to control his behavior, which he didn't control himself. So I guess that is what I'm really struggle with sometimes. Yeah.
So you've just described how I felt when my children were at that age. They drive me crazy because they don't know the time. It's just that children before the age of 12 don't know time, because time is not real. Time is a concept we human beings create. In order to fully understand time, we need to reach the cognitive developmental level of a formal operational to understand concepts. That is above the age of 12. So children below the age of 12, they have no notion of time. However, they have the notion of activity. So that's why having a clock with a moving hand will be useful, because they don't need to understand time, they can understand the activity of the hand. So before the age of 12, they cannot understand time. Children move from one activity to another. They are attracted to their behavior is driven by attention. What is in front of them that calls for the attention, that is what they do. They are not intentional. They don't run their lives from intention of being on time. That is an adult concept. They need time to learn that. So when my children were that age, they drive me crazy because you have to be on time and I want to blow up. It's just that time, I hope I don't shock you too much, time is not real. Real meaning to say, I can put my glasses on my laptop, I can put the glasses on my speaker over there, and if I'm looking for my glasses, I look around, I can see it outside there. That's real, that's physical. Have you walked around seeing time? No, time is a concept that we create. In order to understand concept created by human being, a human child needs to go the process of concrete operational and move into formal operational. So before the age of 12, they are still operating concrete operational. Concrete means it's got to be physical. If it is non-physical, if it is conceptual, they don't yet understand. So they only understand activity. So you can, instead of telling you have 5 more minutes, you can get yourself maybe an hourglass. You turn the hourglass, okay, before the sand finishes from the top, you've got to be ready. That is concrete. So they can, your son can follow that. But if you say 5 minutes, what is 5 minutes?
Okay, cool. I'll try that. Or probably I'll give him like just to see the clock or the times on the phone. All right. Thank you very much.
And this is where having a digital clock is not helpful. You need to have analog, because analog clock, you can see the hand move. That is an activity. We human beings create time to measure the distance between starting an activity and ending another activity and starting the next activity. So we begin to put measurements to that. So little children learn through activities. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions or comments?
I like Christine's question just now. It gives me more ideas. I mean, it just makes it clearer why sometimes my instruction works and why most of the time it doesn't, especially with this boy. Yes.
That's why some parents like to use the word mengelamun. You know, your children, you ask them to do something, you ask them to do A, and then an hour or so, where's that boy? And doing something else. You ask them, have you finished doing A? What is that? Because they are attentional. When you ask them to do A, they start doing A, but while doing A, B comes along. Now the attention goes to B. And they are very engrossed in doing B. They've already forgotten about A, because they have not developed doing something based upon the intention. The life of a fully developed human being is the intentional life. The life of a child and the life of an animal is the attentional life. They do things that catches their attention. So before the age of 10 or 12, our children are attentional, not yet intentional. Okay, so let's wrap up. It is already past 9:30. So to wrap up, I'd like to invite each and every one of you. Let me hear your comments, your feedback about this topic for this evening and what you gain out of it. So Franska probably cannot access the mic because the baby is sleeping. So I'll go to Shira first. Go ahead. Ada apa-apa nak cakap sebelum kita tamatkan?
Okay, thank you. Sebab saya masuk lambat kan, jadi for the halfway ni saya dapat faham lah about the formal operational thinking and concrete operational thinking tu. Nanti saya akan go through back untuk topik sebelum ni. And the discussion is very good, especially when we talk about age. Sebenarnya kita kena faham the development also, so that we can know how to react to the children. Jadi after this I akan look through it, and I'm very happy to joining this session. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you very much.
Alhamdulillah. Thank you.
So next, Shaima, go ahead.
So Muhammad is the what do you call that? He has his own routine: 3 times kisses and then 3 times good night, sweet dreams. I really love you, so I had to finish it first. Otherwise, I would disturb his what do you call that? His routine, and he wouldn't be able to go to sleep. Okay, I've learned a lot, even though I came to class. I'm in class. Okay, you wait here. I'm almost done. You wait here. So he's happy that he gets to wait. Although I attended, almost more less than half, but I've learned a lot, and it reminds me back to be very, very aware of the developmental stages, and to what do you call that? To juggle between all the ages that the children are in, not to just operate at the first child's stage. And Christine's question was really, really important too. It just reminds me why things have not been working all this while. So thank you for the explanation too. See, now they're going to say good night to me. So good night to you too, grandfather, and all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Shaima. Next, over to you, Danielle. Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you, Mazuki, for tonight's session. I enjoyed it very much. I would like to share a fun conversations that I just had with my 7-year-old daughter when I tried to introduce her some concept. Last week was their exam week. So I went into their bedroom and I noticed that the bedroom is very messy, the toys all over the place. Then I started to actually ask my girls to tidying up. And at the same time, I was telling that, you know, your bedroom, if it's so messy, then your mind will also become messy. It doesn't help you in the exam later. But when the things are, tidy and organized, then you feel calm and organized. It helps you in the exam as well. Then my 7-year-old, while tidying up the room, then she replied me, what does it do with my brain? So she just, I find it very fun because I say your brain will become calm, but then she answered me this way. And it reminds me that you always told us that the state that we want to have as a parent is in the state of joy and love. So I used to be always driven crazy by my kids. And but when I started to actually remember what you have taught us, always be in the state of joy and love, even then when they're about to drive me crazy, I will actually keep myself sane and try to listen to them more. And one thing that I find very good for me to grow as a parent as well, I actually ask them to give me feedback. Like sometimes when I started to, grow insane and started to my voice tone has increased and started to get angry, I actually asked them to feedback to me. And they did that, and they find it very, how to say, not sure what's the word, but they like it. It's like I am listening to them, and because when they feedback to me, then I quickly come to my awareness that, oh yeah, sorry for that, and I should have done it which way, or I should have talk it in which way, and it improve our relationship very much. Yeah. So thank you for that.
Wow, thank you, Daniel. You are putting all your coaching skills into that. Wow. Okay, thank you. And last but not least, Christine, anything that you like to say before we end?
Sure. I mean, thanks a lot for the session. I guess that, I mean, I'm not sure whether it's like too much to say, but it's like a life-changing perspective for me since I attended the last one. It kind of like bring an aha moment to me, like the kids are not young adults. They may seem like a little body there, like it works like, I mean, they function just like us, but in terms of like development, they are still like a kids. So sometimes it is like our expectation, which drive our own crazy. So we thought that they can do this, but it's all our expectation that fail us. It's not the kids who fail us. So I used to be raising my voice a lot, but I tried to actually tone that down. I did actually talk to my child as well and to ask him like, in case that I'm really like on top of my mind. So how should I do? How should I talk to you? Should I just like keep myself calm first? Let's talk later on, or how? I mean, similarly, when he is trying to throw tantrum, I also ask him the same way. So how you want me to handle? You want me to give you some time to cool down? So then through the conversation and all, I guess that we learn about each other a little bit more. And then like what Daniel has mentioned, I do occasionally ask for feedback as well. I ask for like of course, like the negative one, also the positive one. Tell me when I'm not doing well. Also tell me when I'm doing well. I mean, I told him that I'm also a first-time parent. You are the first-time kid, I'm a first-time parent. So I'm learning my way as well along the way. I do make mistakes. So you have to give me a chance to make it better as well. So I guess with that, I'm not sure it's like the best now, but we are getting better and getting there. Yeah. So thanks for introducing all the concept as well. Yep. Thank you.
Wow, thank you very much. I learned a lot from what you have just said just now. The thought that struck my mind is that, wow, you know more than me when I was your age parenting my children. So I'm so glad that you are having all of this, because the hope that I have is that we as parents, when we raise our competency in raising children, our children will become better human beings for the world to come. So hopefully, as more and more parents become more and more skilled, then the humans that we find on earth are better humans than this generation. Hopefully the next generation will be better for them. So with that, I would like to thank all of you for being here this evening. Christine, Daniel, Shaima, Shira, and Franska, thank you very much for being here this evening. And I look forward to seeing you the next time. So with that, good night and Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Yeah. Thank you.
Good night, everyone.
Good night,
Good night,
everyone.
Shira. Good night, Daniel.